Hello, this is Maren Ailey, and I want to welcome you to the RightStart Math Online Conference. Today, we are going to be featuring Debbie as the RightStart Math Mom of Many with Debbie Oberste. Debbie is a mom of 6 and a grandma to 3. She started homeschooling her children in 1993. Around 2005, Debbie discovered RightStart and started using it with her children. They were not the only ones who learned, because Debbie started understanding math. She uncovered a love of math she didn't know she was capable of. Her grandchildren started homeschooling a few years ago, and guess who's teaching them math? Debbie also teaches civics, American history, and RightStart Math to middle school students. Some of those students are taught in person and some are taught online. She also enjoys encouraging parents as they travel on the wonderful and sometimes overwhelming road of homeschooling. And now I'm turning it over to you, Debbie.
Thank you, Maren, and welcome. I am so excited to be able to talk to you, moms of many, or mom of many's, however you look at it. As Maren said, I am a mom of 6, but before I do that, really quick, I would love if you guys have questions, if you can hold them till the end, that would be awesome. You could type them into the chat box if you want, or you can wait and you can just ask them verbally. I'm good either way. I do have some notes with me because I just want to make sure I stay on topic, and I have to apologize ahead of time. I'm getting over some kind of virus, so I apologize if I should cough in the middle of this. I'm going to try not to. So onward. As Maren said, I did start in 1993, which for probably a lot of you, you may not have even been born yet, or you were just babies. So yes, I've been homeschooling for a long time. And I homeschooled all 6. The thing I find, though, with families, large families, small families, it really doesn't matter is what is your family dynamic? Because each family dynamic looks a little bit different. Just because I have 6 children and maybe one of y'all have 6 children, it's not going to look the same. Our days are going to look a little bit different because what are the ages of our children? What are the learning abilities of our children? Maybe there's some health issues in your family. Maybe mom works. Maybe dad's schedule is crazy. My husband worked 12-hour days, 3 days a week, and he was off 2 to 3 days a week. So our schedule was pretty crazy. But you know what? That's what's so cool about getting a homeschool. So I don't want you guys to sit there and try to compare with anyone else. You have a larger family. It's going to look different, and it's okay. That's the beauty of homeschooling. I want to get to some practical ideas of how to use RightStart Math with a larger family. But first, there's one little topic I really want to address, and that is a term that many use to describe RightStart, and that is the term teacher intensive. And I will be honest, that's a term I have a problem with personally, but I totally understand why people use it. When I think of teacher intensive, I go back to my beginning years of homeschooling when we didn't have the internet, or it was very new. It was hard to come by stuff. We had to make stuff up. We had to do stuff. To me, that was teacher intensive, lots of teacher prep. So when I hear that term, that's what I think of. But I understand how many think of it, and really what they're thinking of it is being teacher interactive. It's teacher led. Yes, RightStart Math does need the teacher to actually teach the child. And that's a good thing, honestly, especially when the kids are young. One of the big reasons why is we need to be aware. When we're teaching one-on-one with our kids, we can see, we can watch and make sure they're understanding. We can see how they're processing through what they're doing. We can see, like my granddaughter was a finger counter. Oh, and she was a bad finger counter. So when I started with her with RightStart, our goal, and she knew it, was to get her to be able to do her math without using her fingers. But I had to watch her. And because I was a finger counter, I know how you could finger count even without really finger counting. But my being aware, I can immediately say, hey, let's grab the abacus. Let's use the abacus. So teacher led, teacher interactive is keeping you aware and alert and up on what they're doing. You can keep an eye on their interest. When they start losing interest, you can stop the lesson and just start it up again the next day. Might take a little bit longer to get through it, but it's okay, because you want them to understand, you want them to be engaged, you want them to enjoy what they're doing. Excuse me. I saw a quote on a group chat, or not a group chat, but a group forum that says, the less teacher involvement that is required, the more likely the student is working below their true instructional level. And I'm going to repeat that one more time because this was really powerful to me. The less teacher involvement that is required, the more likely the student is working below their true instructional level. So my youngest two boys played football when they got to be like middle school, high school age, and my youngest of them really wanted to kick the field goals. However, he didn't really know what he was doing. And he would get out there and he would try on his own and he would practice. He had a general idea of what to do. And, he was okay, hit or miss. He would read about it, or maybe he'd watch videos. YouTube is awesome, right? We could watch videos and learn some things. But I will tell you what really made the biggest difference is when he had one-on-one instruction. We hired a man to come in and work with him. And this man was able to watch him, pay attention to what he was doing, his form, where he could be making his mistakes. It made a huge difference. And I will be honest, I think that's the same with math. I was someone who did really well with math in school, got great grades, wanted to teach math, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I could do it, but I don't know how to teach you how to do it. Now, some of you may get math really great and you could teach it fine, and I think that's fantastic. I could do that now, but when I first started homeschooling, I couldn't. And I went through multiple curriculums until I finally came upon RightStart. And why I'm so passionate about RightStart and making it work for your family, even when you have many children, is because I've never come across anything that teaches such a solid foundation for math. And when I started my older three kids in RightStart, they started at a higher level. And it was a good year. It was a really learning curve year, I should say, not a challenge, but more of a learning curve. Things were a little different. But it was when I started my boys, my youngest kids in B, and we worked progressively up through those levels. Wow. That's when I saw that foundation. And that's when I saw myself. Excuse me. That's when I saw myself really, oh my gosh, I'm understanding this. It's making sense. I'm actually enjoying this. That's what I want for my kids. That's what I want for my grandchildren. That's what I want really for all children. Because it's amazing when you can understand it, you can enjoy it better, you can apply it better. Anyway, going on to some practical ideas. First, before I get there, one more thing is it is crucial to be teacher interactive with your children in those elementary years. So a lot of my practical ideas are going to be focusing on that. The first thing I would say is let's simplify and combine your children in as many subjects as possible. There might be a time where you can combine them both in the same level of math. I did that with my youngest two, and then it became very obvious when it was time for them to separate and I had to split. And I will admit it was a little bit hard because I really enjoyed having them both in the same level. But I knew it was better for them to be where they needed to be. The focus, though, when they're young, and I'm talking elementary years, not middle school, not high school, elementary years, the focus, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Honestly, all my kids are graduated now. If I could go back and do this again, that's where my big focus would have been. Not on all the other subjects. Yes, history is great. I love history. I teach history to middle school kids. Science, awesome. But when they're elementary age, you don't need to do it every single day. You don't have to have them at individual levels. Those are things you can group them together and do. But when your focus is on that reading, writing, and arithmetic, you're setting them into such a strong foundation that by the time they get to middle school and high school, it's going to be so much easier for them to learn on their own and be more independent. Okay, another idea is to set a timer. Now I want to say, I don't know, Dr. Cotter might watch this later. Dr. Cotter, if you're watching, I'm sorry, but don't set it so the child can hear. All right, that's one thing she'll say. I mean, if you're going to set a timer, set it quietly so the child can't hear it. You can hear it, but they can't. Why? Because if they're interested in the lesson, you guys are making great progress, finish the lesson. But when that timer goes off and you see that their interest is waning, you know you've got other things that really need to be done, stop the lesson where it's at. Start it back up the next day. Is that ideal? No, not necessarily. Will it take a little bit longer maybe to get through the level? Yeah, it might. But it goes much smoother for a family, especially if you have many children. Example, say you have 4 children at different levels. You decide you're going to do math for 20 minutes with each child. You're looking at about an hour and a half of math that day. Yeah, that seems a little long. I mean, compared to if you only had 1 child or 2 children, you know, you're looking at maybe 40 minutes. But I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's really worth it to try to figure out a way to get RightStart to work with your family, just because of the way they get that strong foundation. What about getting dad involved? That's another one. And I know for some that's not a possibility, but for others, I work at different conferences throughout the season. I've answered phones for RightStart. I've got dads who come to the booth. They purchase the RightStart. They're teaching it to their children. They come home after work and that's their job when they get home, is to teach math to the kids. Because that's how strong they feel about using RightStart math. Now, will that work for every family? No, but maybe dad could come home and teach a lesson if it's been a rough day. That's one of the beauties of RightStart, because of the way it's set up. It's pretty open and go. You just read through it. I've done that with my husband before. Hey, can you teach this to the kids today? Because I've had something I've had to do. I'm like, don't worry, you may not understand it all. It's okay, they will. You just read through it and teach them. And he did. And they did just fine. Now, my husband is good with math, so he understood it. But I'm just saying, it's that simple to be able to open and go read, that your husband could do that if he needs to. But if they can't play or do the lesson, maybe they can play the games with the kids. Because I will tell you, as a mom of many, especially when I was trying to get it all done, we had history and science, and I had a foreign language, we had music, we had art, we had, reading, and I had different children on different levels and our different
Okay,
math.
you can play in a little bit.
Oh, sorry. There you go. It was stressful. It was stressful, and games tended to be the thing that went to the wayside. But it wasn't until later, and one of the things that I'll be getting into here in a minute, that I saw the value, really the true value of playing those games. Another idea is maybe you have an older sibling who's mature that could teach a younger sibling, say level A. I've heard of that happening. I can't say that some of my older kids could have done it, but I have a few that could have done it if I needed them to. But that's an option. Or again, they could play the games. They could play the games with the younger siblings. Another, I have two more. This one is probably not as popular, especially in this day and age, but I would say be really selective of the outside the home activities during these early years, because homeschooling and teaching your children, that's the mission, to be honest. That's the focus. And if you can do that, if it's harder to do that when you have a lot of other things on your plate. So I know for us, we had to be very selective of what we could do. And, could my kids play all the different sports that they wanted to play? No. Could they be involved in all the different activities they wanted to be involved in? No, not at that age. Again, like I said, they're all adults now. I don't have anyone who's coming back to me and giving me grief for stuff that they didn't get to do necessarily, because they understand. They understand and they're thankful for it. But the biggest thing, and I think the game-changing idea here, is to consider schooling year-round. Not necessarily every subject, but especially math. I started doing that about halfway through my homeschooling journey. It was huge. It was such a huge game changer for us. One, less stress on, oh my gosh, can I get this lesson done this week? Can we get our, I was aiming for 5 lessons a week. And with all these children, it was stressful. Once I started saying, you know what, we're going to school year round, I could pull back. I didn't have to do 5 lessons a week. To be honest, you can have, I have an example here. If you do 3 lessons a week, and then maybe you have one or the other games days, it's going to take you about 44 to 46 weeks to finish a level. That still gives you in a year 6 to 8 weeks for time off, for vacation, for holidays. I am so sorry about the coughing. And it just makes it more freeing. You have a doctor's appointment, you have a sick day. It's not as stressful to school year round. And the other benefit of schooling year round for us was that I didn't have to do all the reviewing at the beginning of each of the levels. So that eliminated lessons that needed to be done. And so we could get through the level a little bit quicker. Another thing, when you're going through the levels, you go through a lesson, that beginning warm-up, that's a review. If your child knows that information, guess what? Don't do that review. Don't do that warm-up. Move on to the activity. Now, most of my kids needed the warm-up activity, so we pretty much would do the warm-up activity. However, it's just review. And so, some of your children know it, and you know that they know it. Move on, go on to the activity. If you have 4 children, and let's say you have 4 children who are in levels, B, C, D, and E, just throw that out. You can school year round, go to a 3-day-a-week schedule. You could teach 2 of those children on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Take some water. And then you could teach the other 2 on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and I'm going to throw in a Saturday here. I know that's kind of tough, but for the season, it's something to consider if that would work for your family dynamic, if you really want to use RightStart math. And I will tell you, I think it's worth it, but that's my personal opinion. So, but if you teach Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're not teaching 4 children math every day. So then you're only looking at maybe 40 minutes to an hour a day of math, which makes it a little bit more doable when you have a lot of different children of different ages and where everybody's at on their journey. One other way of doing this, and an idea I'm just throwing out, is that you could teach 2 levels on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you don't want to do the Saturday, okay? The first week, and then you would teach Tuesdays and Thursday the second week. Then you go back and teach your other 2 children on those opposite days. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you have the 2, let's say A and E. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you're doing the B and C. And then you flip-flop the next week. So the next week, the B and C are doing 3 days a week, and the A and E are doing 2 days a week. So there's a lot of different ways you could do this. You're going to have to determine what will work best for your family. What do you want out of math for your children? Like I said, I work at booths, and I'm almost done. And then if you guys have some questions, we'll go with that. I work at the booths at conferences, and I can't tell you how many people we get. Their children are usually around 4th, 6th grade. They're struggling. They don't know their math facts. They don't have a strong foundation in math. These parents are desperate. They're frustrated. They want help, and they need hope. And I'm thankful that we can offer that to them. But listen, if you could get it from the beginning, if you could start when they're young, put in and invest that time with them, setting that foundation. It's like building your house, right? You build a house, you have a strong foundation, you get the walls up, you get the roofs up, your house will last forever. Well, maybe not forever, but for a while. But let's just say you don't take time to really put in a strong foundation, and then you start putting the walls up, and then you finally realize, wait, something's messed, this isn't working well, and you have to go back and fix that foundation. It takes a lot more time, it takes a lot more money. But if you can get them from the beginning, get that foundation in, I can guarantee you that when you get to middle school math, you get to higher math, it is going to be a little bit of I shouldn't say a little bit, a lot smoother ride. At least I saw that with my own children. Whatever you guys decide to do, however you decide to teach, be consistent. Consistency is key also with your kids. Getting some math in, whether it be a lesson or a game, is really important to help them with getting that strong foundation. So I'm ending my portion of talking. You guys are more than welcome to ask questions, but I do want to remind you that today at 1:30, Kathleen Cotter will be speaking on subtracting from the left and other cool things. Some of the kind of unusual things that RightStart does that you don't always see in other curriculum. Then tomorrow at 11:30, we have Rachel Anderson teaching RightStart to a child with learning disabilities or special needs. And then I'm pretty excited. Tomorrow at 1:30, Dr. Cotter herself is going to be speaking on RightStart Math, Past and Future. That is pretty exciting to get to hear from her herself. All right, we are done. So I will try to look.
There's a couple of questions.
All right, I will read it just to make sure. I have a 2nd and 4th grader this year. I feel like I'm all over the place. Would you say I still have time to provide them a good foundation? Well, yes, I do think you do. You do. Listen, my older kids were 13, 11, and 9 when I found RightStart. I ended up putting them all in the same level because that's where they all tested. My oldest, my 13-year-old, had some really serious learning struggles. And my 9-year-old, she was right on target. But because I had done a bunch of different stuff with the kids, we were all over the place too. But when I got them in that level together, it was one of our best years of math. And even playing the games, or as my older son called them, exercises. We did some extra exercises. So yeah, just work at being consistent. Really look at your day, your family dynamic, and try to set aside time and really you're focused reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now I will throw out maybe morals or values. For us, it was Bible. It just depends where you're at. Those were the key things that we got every day. The others were like icing on the cake. When my kids got to be middle school, high school, they were doing all that work almost independently. And they were getting all the history they needed. They were doing excellent with their grammar. They did very well with their writing, even though we didn't focus a lot on it when they were younger. At least my youngest two. I tried to do that with my older three. And my sixth child, my oldest daughter, she did a little bit of everything: homeschool, public school, and private school. So we've done, I've had all sorts of experiences. All right, next one. Would it be feasible to combine children only for different units? Geometric shapes or measurements, for instance. It would probably involve moving around in the book quite a bit. You know, I know some people might have that ability to do. Personally, for me personally, that would have been hard for me to try to do. And the thing I see with RightStart is that, yeah, we might be teaching geometry in the different levels, but we're teaching them at different levels. They're building on each other. So, I mean, if that's something that works and you can do it, you know, give it a try. I personally would have found that really hard to do. I like the fact that the book was just the teaching is open and go pretty much. I just opened it and would read it to the kids and we would just work through it. So for me to have to take the extra time to figure out what went together, what I could put together, that would have been really challenging. What age do I recommend starting? Well, our level A is written for kindergarten. So I would say, depending on when you start kindergarten, I didn't start kindergarten until my kids were 6, but some children are ready when they're 4. I've heard of some kids when they're 3 getting going. It didn't work for my kids. They were none of them were ready that early, but it is technically written for kindergarten. But you know what? Whatever age, if your child needs help with getting a strong foundation, even if they don't do the levels, we have the tutoring kits that help to solidify some of these areas that have been a struggle for kids using other curriculum. So there's lots of options. All right, I think I got all the ones in chat. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to ask. Or Ms. Kathleen or Marin, if you guys want to chime in on any of those questions.
The only thing I would expand on is, Carrie's question with what age do you recommend starting? And like Debbie said, it really depends upon the child, whether they're 3 or maybe they're even 7. Or maybe they've got some learning challenges and they're not starting till they're 12 because of whatever. Level A is for a brand new, never been used child. So if they've never done it, we start with level A and we go on. And that's the beauty of RightStart is we don't say, oh, this is kindergarten. You need to be, 5 to 6 years old. It's level A beginning. It's level B, which follows A. It's level C. And so it continues. And so you can customize to make this fit your child. You don't have to try to shove your child into a preconceived time and date. So just kind of keep that in mind, that's the beauty, the wonder of homeschooling is you can make it fit your child. So to specifically answer your question, Carrie, I don't know. Depends on your kid.
That made me think. Thank you, thank you, Kathleen. Call you Miss Kathleen. I'm thinking about classes, but I actually started my youngest 2 boys when one was turning 7 and the other was turning 9 years old. This was in the first edition. We started in level B, which was the beginning. And they were older. They were older kids starting math. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're never going to get to algebra. But you know what? They got to algebra in high school. They did well. They've gone on, went to college. One of my sons ended up getting like an academic award for he played sports in college and won the academic award for the sports player of the year. That made me pretty proud. All that to say, I started them later than what most people started them. I stressed a lot. And like I said, if I go back again, I wouldn't do all that stressing. I would just teach them where they're at and move with them as they progress. Some kids are going to move through quicker. Some kids might move through slower. It's okay. Move with them.
Debbie, there's also a question from Carrie. It says, what's your encouragement for the mom who feels behind?
Well, I would really sit down and look at what you're doing. That I did that. I found that I would make a schedule. I always like to make my schedule. I had to have things written down in a book, or I did it on the computer. Once I got used to the computer, I would make my schedule, have it all typed out. I wanted to check my boxes. I would get really frustrated when I couldn't get those boxes checked. But what I realized, it was causing a lot of stress. And then my children were picking up on that stress. That's one thing I did not address on here is, you know what? Be careful of your attitude when you're teaching, because our kids pick up on that attitude. And so I had to stop and I had to reevaluate and I had to determine what is important for us right now. What is realistic that I can do right now? And then just go from there and you build off of that. And like I said, if you have to whittle it down to all you're doing is reading, writing, and arithmetic, then do that. Like I said, I teach American history to middle schoolers. Honestly, it amazes me that people want to pay me to teach their kids, middle school kids, history, because I'm like, go to the library, grab a book, watch a video, talk about things as a family. So on other subjects, you can slack off just a little bit when they're younger. You can enjoy those subjects. They don't have to be, oh my gosh, we have to get it done every day. But honestly, you get them solid on their reading and their comprehension. Get them solid on their math. Get that foundation in. All that other stuff will just be easier for them to deal with as they get older. At least that's what I have found in my situation. So yeah, I've had to stop in the middle of the year. I've had meltdowns. I've cried wondering if I'm ruining my children. But you know what? You spending time with your kids, you investing into your children, working with them, making sure you're being consistent, getting something done, I can promise you, after what I saw with my oldest daughter in school, one thing, they wanted her to do geometry in high school. She was a year behind, so they put her in a remedial class. This remedial class consisted of her sitting in front of a computer, watching a computer program teach her geometry. And as long as she took notes, she could use those notes on her test. So when she took the test, she could use any notes that she wrote on her test. And I'm like, okay, they're doing this in high school, public school, and they're giving her a passing grade. My eyes were open to, you know what, I'm doing fine. My kids are learning, we're interacting, we're talking, it's real life stuff. Yeah, there's struggles, but guess what? They're going to face struggles all their life. We're going to face struggles. We're going to have things happen. How do we deal with it? That's important too. But be consistent. So if you feel behind, you know what? Okay, find a starting place and just go from there and be as consistent as you can be.
Debbie, do you also want to talk about how you can go A to F and then go into high school?
Sure. For older kids especially. So my example, my granddaughter is 13 and we are currently working through level E. So she's 7th grade. This coming school year, she'll be 8th grade. We have some options. So she's in level E. We're going to do level F. I personally want her to do G and H because of the way it teaches algebra, pre-algebra topics with a geometric influence, just because I was someone who struggled a little bit with geometry in high school, and I see the value of that. But, you know, if her mom wants her to start algebra by high school, then we can start algebra in 9th grade. We can finish off E. We're going to go through F. And then for older kids, don't do this with your younger kids. Let them enjoy their time, you know. And there are some younger kids that will move really fast and they're doing algebra and, you know, when they're 10 years old, but that's not the norm. Okay. The norm is to do algebra in around 8th or 9th grade. I know some people really want to start algebra in 7th grade, but again, look at your children, look at their bent. Are they enjoying math? Do they do well with math? With my granddaughter, we started her in level B when she was 10. So we're 13 now, we're in level E. But her confidence in math, oh my gosh, it's so different than when we first started. Does she love math? No, but is she enjoying math? Yes. Is she understanding math? Yes. So we're going to go from E to F, and then I'm going to let her parents decide, because I'm helping to teach math to them. Do we move on to algebra, or do we take an extra year and try to get in G and H? So again, options. What do you want for your children? I want a solid foundation. I want them to truly understand. So, all right. I think that might be it. If anyone has any questions, I see that it was written in here. You can contact us. It says you could call us or send us an email at info@rightstartmath.com. And yes, as Kathleen says, you can't build on what isn't there. I tried to. It doesn't work well. So thank you for coming and attending and listening. And if anyone else, you guys have any other ideas you want to suggest, you know, feel free, let us know. Contact us. You come across something that works for you. I actually saw something today that I incorporated into this, and that was that you don't have to do history and science every day. I was reading about someone else who uses RightStart with multiple children, and that's one of the things that she does. And so I used that. I incorporated in here. I wish I would have known that back in my day when I was actually teaching all my kids at the same time. Thank you. I'm glad you're encouraged.
Hi, I have something that I could add.
Okay.
Something that has worked well for me with toddlers, which has always been my biggest struggle, is when I had a toddler and then 3 olders that I wanted to do math with. Well, this was just last year. I did exactly what you said, where I set a timer, and it was for 20 minutes, and I did one at a time. So one girl, I have all girls. One girl was with me. One girl was allowed to use the iPad on a learning app. And then the other girl was assigned to play with her toddler sister. And that way, if the toddler needed something, I could always say, you know, I just refer her back to her sister. Your sister can help you. It's her turn with you. And she really got the hang of that. And it worked out well for us.
That's a great idea. I like that.
Well, thank you, Debbie. I think this was very good. We appreciate everybody coming in. And we look forward to seeing you at 1:30 Central Time for subtracting from the left and other cool things.
Thank you for all coming, listening.
Bye.
Bye.